Hi, I'm Helena Natt. I'm the Executive Director with the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce. This is being recorded, so if you have any questions, this will be also posted at chamber.nyc. Thank you for everyone attending and supporting Small Business Day. I think this webinar is very important for questions on our new navigation through this, especially with phase 2 opening on Monday. So I'm just going to turn it over to Michael immediately because I know I have a lot of questions for him, and I want to put your questions in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Michael afterwards or myself, and Michael will have a list of all the attendees afterwards so he doesn't have to worry about getting everyone's information. And Michael, I'll also send you the copy of the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Helena said, I'm Michael Einbinder. I'm an attorney in New York City. We have a small firm in Midtown on Madison Avenue that I haven't seen in about 2.5 months. Hoping I'll be back there next week at some point in time. And we've been speaking to a lot of clients about issues associated with concerns about liability for having employees come back to work. And they're concerned about asking people to come back. What happens when people say they don't want to come back or they don't feel safe coming back? What kind of documentation can you use as an employer to protect yourself against liability? What kind of policies should you create for this new world that we're living in? And the problem in terms of answering this is that there really aren't any clear answers. There's, the advice that I can give is the best advice I can give at this point in time. Nothing has happened in my lifetime, and certainly within my year, that comes close to paralleling what we're living through now, and the legal issues that arise as a result of it are new in large part. So you really have to do the best you can under the circumstances to protect yourself and your employees and your patrons, depending on the business you're in. Going forward, and there are some tips that we can that address some issues that you should be concerned about and that you should try to deal with as best you can as you get as the process moves along. I don't know what the nature of all of your business is and how you deal with COVID in your workplace and your place of business is in large part dependent on the nature of your business. But there are some things that really are pertinent for everybody. So let's start with this. The best advice that we can give, that I'm capable of giving, is first to follow whatever the regulations are, whatever the rules are, whatever the recommendations and guidance is from the state and city, and if there is some from the federal government, and that's a good idea, obviously, because they're in some hopefully well thought out, science-based, and you are able to at least protect yourself in some respects by following those guidelines, because you can say that you operated in the manner that is the best course of action that you could have taken during this period of time. So look up, make sure you are behind, that you are operating in accordance with those rules and regulations. And Helena said just a minute ago, in a small place of business, which by the way includes my office, there are questions about how you set up after having, in a place that doesn't have the ability to be modified that easily or without substantial expense, so that you can create the social distancing that's recommended. So periodically I'm going to say this, but it's really the best advice that anyone can give, which is to follow rules follow the guidance that's out there, and follow it as much as you can, which to me means going above and beyond what they're telling you to do. And if there's 3 different pieces of advice you're getting from looking at guidance from the city, state, and the federal government, follow the guidance that's the most extreme. So you'll protect yourself as much as you can. I like to tell my clients that I worry for a living. I am concerned about every single thing that my clients do in the operation of their business. I'm not just talking about this, whether it's a contract, a potential liability, an issue of assets. I'm telling clients that I'm here to worry for them so they can relax and make sure, so I can try to make sure that they're protected as much as I possibly can. So in this context, I think you need to worry as much as you possibly can to protect yourself. And you need to set up your business in a way that adheres to as many policies as you can possibly utilize in the context of your business. And that includes social distancing requirements, plexiglass between desks. If you're a retail store, have the cash registers behind plexiglass. Make sure customers and employees are wearing masks if you possibly can. Create your business in a way that recognizes what people are saying about the possibility of additional spread of this disease, and you will be going a long way towards protecting yourself from legal liability. Someone asked a question a minute ago about workers' compensation, and I will get back to that in a minute, because it's certainly part of what I want to talk to everyone about today. There's been a lot of talk in the last months about liability waivers, about getting releases from employees when they come to work for you that recognizes, or where they sign a document that indicates that they recognize that there are potential risks associated with coming to work that have to do with this with this pandemic, and that they understand those risks and they're taking those risks and they're doing it of their free will. I'm here to tell you that it's probably a good idea to get those kinds of documents. It's a little bit overbearing to ask people to sign them. We are not doing that in our place of business. But if you want to really, if you are concerned about protecting yourselves, that one way to try to do that is to ask people to sign releases or waivers. I will tell you right now, unequivocally, that it's not 100% certain that that document is going to hold up in court anywhere. Releases it's hard to release certain kinds of claims. It's hard to enforce those documents in a variety of contexts, especially when the risks are not entirely clear, and where you have a position of some power over your employees in doing that. But it's still, a recommended course of action for some people to do that. And there are a variety of forms available online. Lawyers have them. We can help if you want. But again, I want to be clear that I am not telling you that they're going to work. I'm telling you it provides a modicum of protection. I think that one of the things that's listed in the program description that I gave Helena and that I've been talking about with people is workers' compensation. So let me address that. Workers' compensation is intended to protect employees and employers if something happens to a worker in the job, a factory accident, a trip, and your cash register person falls over the cash register. Any kind of accident that happens on premises, whereas you can get sued by a third party, workers' compensation protects your employees by providing a fund of money that you put money into as part of your compensation to people, and that they are entitled to receive as a result of any sort of workplace accident. Does workers' compensation cover people getting sick from the COVID-19 virus? I don't know. Maybe it's not clear. It's not at all clear. None of this is clear. I haven't done a lot of research on it because research not difficult to find. I read people who both said that it is a protection for employers and not a protection for employers because the virus is a workplace accident. When we talk about liability in the first place, if someone gets sick who's working for you, and you have taken all the precautions that you can, and they get sick anyway, there's still a possibility that someone's going to hold you responsible for it. You're a deeper pocket. There's somebody people who they can reach out to, and there's always going to be a question about the people who got sick from the workplace, right? We don't know where they've been and who they've interacted with, and it's very possible and probably difficult to prove that the place of business is the place that caused them to get sick. So that's really the first issue, is whether there's any responsibility. That doesn't really stop somebody from suing you. It just stops you from being responsible for it. Ultimately, it's still expensive and so on. The workers' compensation is a way to protect you if the people who get sick are employees, if workers' compensation actually ends up covering these kinds of illnesses, and that's not at all clear. If you have general liability insurance coverage, if some employee sues you or makes a claim against you because they get sick and they claim it was at the workplace, then you should report that incident and any claim or any notification that you're going to be sued by sending it to every insurance company that you deal with. I recommend that anytime any claims are made, we tell all our clients that no matter what the nature of the claim is, let your insurance company know about it. There is an issue that has been raised and comes up periodically in the context of whether workers' compensation protects the employer and provides a benefit to the employee, and that is whether or not the person who works for you is actually an employee. If that person is treated as an independent contractor, that person is paid on a 1099, then that person is that person is not an employee. As a matter of law, not an employee, they're an independent contractor. So workers' compensation is not going to be available under any circumstances if someone gets sick and they're an independent contractor and they claim that they got sick in the workplace. That's just not what workers' compensation protects. There are a whole host of reasons why, business reasons why people, why businesses hire independent contractors, and I could give a 3-hour presentation on whether or not your people, the people who work for you, are independent contractors or employees, and there are risks associated with treating people as independent contractors where they really are employees. But that's not the subject of this conversation. But I will warn you or suggest to you that the more you have more protection as actually as a W-2 employee than if they're an independent contractor as a 1099 employee. I strongly suggest in every instance in business, and as it relates to this, that you do as much as you can to document what your policies and procedures are. You provide those to your employees and say, this is what we're doing. These are the policies of ABC retail store for the next 6 months. We are requiring employees to follow these guidelines, and we're following these guidelines. And then follow the guidelines. It's good to document it. It's good to make sure that you've done the things that you said you were going to do. It's good to keep records of having done it. It's absolutely essential to keep records of any concerns or comments that are raised by employees with respect to these things. And it's good to take pictures of what it is you've done to change your workplace to accomplish the goal of following those guidelines. And again, this presentation is really about concerns associated with potential liability when we get back to work, and so I want you to listen to what I'm talking about record keeping, because record keeping is critical and essential and used as a defense to any claim that anyone brings against you for some impropriety associated with this. And as a lawyer who represents clients who get sued all the time, I like to have my clients give me all of their records relating to the incidents at hand and their policies and procedures so that I can defend them on that basis. So I recommend that all of you do that. There are some state and federal regulations or I should say guidance out there. There's probably more likely to be actual laws. at the local level in the city of New York and in other municipalities, and less likely to be laws at a state level because they're sort of hard to have something apply to everyone throughout the state. But the guidance is there, and I think the city council is taking a leading role in trying to formulate some sort of legal framework for this. So you should be careful to watch for that and make sure that you're in compliance with those things. Clients have asked us, and I've heard the question and read the question on a variety of forums, if you ask an employee to come back and they don't come back because they're scared of transmission of the virus, it's not at all clear to me that you have the freedom that you had before to terminate employment when people won't work. It's just not something that's entirely clear. So the better recommendation is not to do it. From the standpoint of employee relations, we're not, this is just me, but we're not asking people to come back who are afraid to come to the office. On the other hand, it's easier for us to work from home than a lot of businesses are able to work from home. So we're not doing much in the realm of requiring people to come back, and we're setting up, and most businesses seem to be doing this, setting up shifts, having people come in 2 to 3 days a week and then changing them off and seeing if we can have the teams of people who work together in the office at the same time. And that's helpful in terms of social distancing as well. There are training sessions, there is information out there on the internet, some of it accurate, some of it not, about how to maintain a workplace environment in a safe manner. I would suggest you look at it. And again, I from my perspective, you follow the most egregious version of that or the most detailed version of that, and you're the safest in terms of liability. You've done everything you possibly can. I wish I had more to tell people that I can answer questions, but in general, what we're advising clients is what I've just told you. And we add a layer to that because one of the things that we do as a law firm is we represent clients in the franchise world, and they're concerned about information that their franchisees are conveying to their employees. So we're giving advice to our clients about how they should give advice to their franchisees about this. So this is coming up all the time, and I'm afraid that it's going to be evolving. It's uncharted in terms of what the law is. And I would suggest that it's unlikely that there's going to be a uniform set of rules that are going to come out down the line, because the way judges operate is some judges decide it one way, some judges decide it another way, and ultimately it all works its way up to higher courts, and then somebody decides, a higher level court decides what the rules are. Aside from the obvious risk of getting sick for the next period of time, and you have to be aware of that, but you also have to be aware that there are ways to protect you. And I hope that I've given you some valuable information about how you can best do that. Some of it's practical, but some of it is what we see in the legal world about what is the best way to protect yourself generally. So,
Michael, there's a do you have access to the chat, or you want me to read the question?
I do.
Okay.
So the first question was about the workers' compensation.
Right.
This is from Ralph. Hi, Ralph.
And then there's a second question, a follow-up on that.
Employees are still being required to work remotely. Is the employer liable if the employee's personal identifying information is hacked because he or she must work from home and may not have the same IT security as they would on premises? That's an interesting question that I don't have an answer to. Sorry. We are worried about that as well. So I have a lot of confidential information. Needless to say, as a lawyer, everything we communicate with our clients is confidential, and we are concerned about that as well. And we're just following as much as we can from our IT professionals about how to protect our data and transmitting it. Our firm is, and this is a practical bit of information, and we're working from a VPN, from a virtual private network, so that most of this is going right into where our systems are, which is the cloud, and that's pretty secure as far as I'm concerned. But we worry about it as well, and there's some issues out there about whether or not Zoom is the most secure platform there is. And what I'm seeing is that most people are realizing that, but ignoring it for the most part. So if you really have sensitive information, what else are we going to do? It is the only way. It is the single easiest way to communicate with people, and it has been during this entire time. It's a great product, but it also, there are some risks about using it and some hacking. Most of the hacking that we've heard about has been hacking that has to do with people with harassment type things coming over Zoom. I guess we wouldn't know if information was being stolen unless it was being used in an overt way against us. But I don't really have any more detail about that. Helena is asking, or someone is asking. I'll answer.
That's me.
Yeah.
I want to know.
So,
do you have to have people work 6 feet apart?
Again, this is the guidance. So there are no laws that I have seen on these issues. The best advice, as I said earlier, that I can give anybody about protecting themselves from liability is to follow the guidance. And so, because that says you've operated with due care, and
Right.
that's what, if you don't operate with due care, you're potentially liable for something.
Right.
So my advice, my workplace is going to have people wearing masks when they're interacting. My office, thankfully, is big enough where someone can be actually 11 or 12 feet away from me, but then I'm going to have to disinfect the couch. I mean, there's just so many different things that you have to think about, from your own office, your own workspace, but to common areas like kitchens and bathrooms. And that is, I'm not an expert on disinfectant, but I have a spray bottle and I have rags that we've been using all over my house, and I expect I'll do the same thing in our office. And we're following the protocols in our office about what the city and state are saying and the Fed is saying about that kind of thing. And so I don't know that there are any legal requirements, so follow the rules if you can. So Ralph's saying that Microsoft Teams is better for calls. Is that what you're finding? That it's more secure?
Yeah, over at the bank, we were using Zoom, and then we switched over to Microsoft Teams because, from what we were explained, your information's not blasted out like it is in Zoom, so you're able to control who's on it and who's monitoring stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's certainly, use the best platform you can use. I've suggested other platforms to people in my day-to-day communications with people, and most people are saying, well, Zoom is the thing I know how to use. I mean, people are reluctant to try to learn yet another program or another format. The courts are using Skype, and I feel like I'm like in the 1990s or something. It's an absolutely horrible process and very, very cumbersome to use and not very good at all, and I don't think very secure. But that's what the courts are using, which is not surprising because they're sort of in the last century anyway in terms of their technology.
Michael, Kathleen has a question. If any employee does not want to come back to work because they are concerned about COVID, are they eligible to collect unemployment?
I don't know the answer to that, Kathleen. I think that if you terminate their employment, they are, certainly, but there are risks there. And I don't know. I don't have any information on the unemployment rules about that. It's a subject that keeps coming up, and I just haven't studied it. I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry.
So, for example, if you have a small business, let's say 5 or 6 employees, and one person says, you know what, they don't want to come back, but and you find that it's really not conducive for them to work at home. It's not productive. It's for whatever that work experience that they are supposed to do. Is it just like one of those things that you just pay them to keep them at home so you don't?
Yeah.
I know you don't have the answer, but I'm just trying to.
Right. I mean, I think I can bring this back to my world. We have
Right.
6 attorneys and 11, 12 people in my office, depending on the week. And we were actually hiring people as we had one guy had just left my firm. We were hiring to replace him, and which we put on hold for the time being. So our full strength is 8 lawyers with 15 people in the office. And what we've decided, we're not going to push people. It's not as convenient. It doesn't work as well to work remotely. It's not like I can walk down the hallways and talk to my paralegal and then go into 3 different associates' offices in 5 minutes. What I end up doing, and it's inconvenient, I make appointments with people who work for me. And it's not conducive to productivity. I understand that, and people are concerned about it. But, the rules aren't really entirely clear. I agree. Ralph just put something on about rules. In fact, yeah, I think that you can fire anyone for any reason, is what an employment at will situation is. But it raises some issues that are not entirely clear legally. It has to do with a fear of the workplace. I mean, someone certainly can make an argument that it's the result of a medical condition, if you define medical condition broadly to include a fear, a phobia. Then maybe it's not something that you can just rely, not a situation where you can rely on employment. Well, again, it's not something that I can pick up by new Westlaw and find out what the rules are, because this hasn't happened before. There's going to be something that's sort of kind of related. That's the way we look for things in legal analysis. But everything that I'm hearing is that people aren't entirely clear about it. At a certain point in time, as people become less afraid of it, as we get through a vaccine or whatever it is, I mean, I think you have more protection for it. But my advice to people is to stay the course as long as you can. We've survived this thing for 3.5 months. And, I hope that all of you are at least having your business operate in some somewhat limited capacity, but less successfully than before. I think that's true of everybody. And you just sort of have to take the opportunity to try to do it as best you can under really dire circumstances. It's not a legal question. It's more like a practical. I don't have an answer legally, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I wish I did. Again, we suggest that people follow the rules, and there aren't rules about that. That's not what I have not heard about, and I've not actually heard about whether unemployment will cover people or people can quit because they're being forced to come back. Those things are not entirely clear yet.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this
Yeah.
really this goes.
I mean, I think in a couple of months we could do this again, and there'll be more answers. But
Right.
For right now, it's not entirely clear what the regs are.
So you can't even, like, if we can't even have like small group meetings. I mean, if you did, you would have to have release statements. I mean, like,
right.
I mean, for example, for the chamber, if we wanted to go back to like a 10-person networking event, I mean, I'm thinking after this conversation that you're bringing up, I wrote down, we have to have a release signature. I need the common areas where if they go to the restroom or they go into the kitchen, or small kitchen, or they walk, across from each other. I mean, that's what I also want to ask you. Do you have to have one way in and one way out where people are not going against each other? Do you know that?
No, well, this is a suggested guideline.
Okay.
And we are actually going to put, we're going to have one-way streets, so to speak.
Yeah.
Counterclockwise or clockwise around the office, we're kind of an oval, and people are doing that. The guideline, and it's available every time somebody uses a restroom, a restroom that's small but has several spots in it, some stalls or whatever it is they're suggesting one at a time, and that's what the guidelines are. So the legal advice is follow the guidelines as much as you can, because that protects you as much as you can be protected. Limit the number of meetings you have with outsiders. If we are doing hearings. No one that I know, no lawyer that I know wants to do a face-to-face hearing. We're doing depositions and court hearings on Zoom and Skype. I'm an arbitrator with the American Arbitration Association. We have a hearing in August that no one even suggested or thought for a moment that we were going to do it face-to-face. And there's only 4 people involved in that. It's a couple of lawyers and one witness at a time in the same room together. and it's just safer. So, you know, if you have a business and you're trying to maintain the safety of it, both to protect the people who work for you and your patrons, but also to protect yourself against liability, then follow the guidelines. It's really the legal principle is you take reasonable steps and due care to protect people. It's hard to get sued and be liable for doing that, for having someone get sick on the job, if you do what you're supposed to do. On the other hand, if you don't follow it, it's easier to be liable for it. You know, I wish it was simpler. It may be more simple later, but the news may not be good. You know, it may be that maybe that employers are getting sued all over the place for this. And, you know, what you've done, if you're listening to what I'm suggesting, what you're going to do if you're listening to what I'm suggesting is protect yourself as much as you possibly can and maybe avoid those liability traps.
Well, that's what's going to happen is until they get like a vaccine, and, you know, especially in the fall, I mean, when they say that it could be a second wave of this, again, I'm speechless because it's just it's frustrating as a small business, and I feel like it's almost a no-win situation for some businesses. You know, you just have, you know, I'm looking at it where we have to protect ourselves because we just want to make sure, hold on, people are coming on really last minute. To make sure that, you know, someone just isn't looking for fast money, you know, and that's what a couple of attorneys that I've been in contact with that are members sat there and said, the courts are going to open up right now because employees are just going to, you know, are going to have an opportunity if they need, you know, to go after the employer.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And I think there's risks associated with that. And my advice, again, is what I've been suggesting, which is to follow.
Stay home, make everyone stay home and work.
But if that's possible, then truthfully, you do it. Although, you know, we've estimated that, you know, our inventory is our hours, right? We're lawyers, we sell our time. Right. And like a lot of people who are in professional services, right? And we think we're down about 20% in hours. If I look at the reports that I get every week, and instead of 35 hours a week, I'm getting people billing 28, 29 hours a week, except for me, unfortunately, for some reason, I can't figure it out. But
is that because
I'm working harder than I was.
But is that because they're at home, or is it just the nature of COVID?
We don't bill time for trying to figure out how to get something done because of remote working.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, I think most of the people who work for me are working almost their normal days. But, you know, every time you want a document, it's not like you can turn around and get it, or you can just print it out because the printer, they can print something, or whatever it is. I mean, it could be anything, but it's not as convenient. And as I said before, when I want to have a meeting with one of my colleagues, it's a phone call. It's an appointment to make a phone call rather than Skype. So it becomes a longer kind of process that we don't feel comfortable billing to people. And then, you know, we've also got people, like everyone does, people with young families and that are taking care of kids part of the time, or having kids run in the room, or they have to deal with an emergency at home. You know, I'm dealing with things like that here, and you know, whatever the emergency is. Today I have to deal with a family matter this afternoon that I wouldn't have to deal with if I was at work. So it's just the nature of it. And I think a lot of businesses are like that. Our clients, you know, we've actually been surprised at how active our clients have been. Some of it's COVID related. So we are spending some time in our business dealing with or addressing issues for clients. And Helena, you know that we have been dealing with retail rent issues for clients. And we're involved in a very, very large lawsuit over a very large commercial tenant who hasn't paid rent since April. We represent the tenant, and we're taking the position that they can't operate and they shouldn't have to pay rent. But you know, generally our business is the same as it was. We just can't get it done as efficiently as we were before.
Right. Michael, we have 5 more minutes. So what I would like you to do, if anyone had, we had a couple of people come in last minute. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. Go over all the services that you offer, because I know that we were kind of zooming in on COVID and employment, but I don't think people realize that you work with, you know, with landlords and things like that. So
Sure.
if you could just, you know, go over your services, that would be helpful. And then this way people can come back to you if they have any questions.
Right. So my firm name is Einbinder & Dunn. We're on Madison Avenue and around 30th Street. We have been operating for quite a while. We're small business, small to medium-sized business law firm. Most of our clients are small businesses, entrepreneurial businesses, and they range in industries from manufacturing companies to real estate developers to restaurants to home services, to stock brokerage firms. I mean, we represent a wide variety of companies that are involved in a wide variety of businesses. Our practice is really almost entirely business. We represent businesses in transactions, acquisitions, shareholders agreements, contracts, leases, acquisitions of buildings and businesses, leasing, and so on. So we do real estate and business transactions of all kinds. And and what we focus a lot of our time on is representing clients who are in the franchise field. So we represent both franchisors, the ones who sell the franchises, as well as franchisees in all aspects of their business. So we help clients franchise. We follow the regulatory rules for them. We address issues between themselves and their franchisees. We represent franchisees who are buying franchises, who have operated franchises. We do, for example, we have a client who has 25 restaurants in New York. We do all their leasing work. We do all of their litigation work. We do all of their ADA work. We do all sorts of work for them in a wide variety of aspects of their business, including shareholders and shareholders agreements and financing issues, that they just happen to be a restaurant finance franchise business. And I'm a trial lawyer and also an arbitrator. So we do a lot of commercial and business and real estate litigation. We do a lot of work in non-compete area. We do a lot of work in corporate dissolution issues and corporate fights, internal fights between shareholders. So
You have two questions
work
in the
that
chat.
you need.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
just anything that you need for your business, we can help you with in one way or the other. Go ahead.
For the people that just ask questions, what I have to do, unfortunately, a hard stop. Put your information in and I will make sure Michael gets it. The question was, what are the workplace health screen requirements for employees and essential visitors? If he can answer it, he will, you know, with you. And Yvonne, if you can, are you considering or working on any class action suits for tenants against the landlord? So
I can answer the second one really quickly if you want.
Oh, okay.
We are not doing any class action work for clients. We are representing large retail clients or medium to large retail clients in connection with disputes with their landlords about rent and whether or not they had to pay it during this period of time.
Thank you, Michael, so much. Like I said, you guys, if you have any questions, put it in the chat real quick right now before I close it out. Michael will get it, and I will also provide him all the people that did attend. Even, I don't know if he could see that a lot of people were on without video. So we had 21 people, which was really, I think people are very much interested in this topic.
Thank you for having me today. I'm gonna put my email address in here if I can type. That's not working. Okay, that seems like it's close enough. I think that's my name. All right. If I didn't spell my name properly, that's because the type is really small. I can't see small.
But while he's typing, thank you everyone for your participation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Michael. He's putting his information in. You can always email me and I'll forward it over to Michael.
The best way to reach me is email, and I've just put my email address in the chat room, I think. That's it.
Okay, before I close it out, everyone take his email address. And then, like I said, if you have any questions, you can, you know, email me and then I can forward it right over to Michael. So everyone, thank you so much for participating. We appreciate Michael for sponsoring Small Business Day. Without you, we can't do this. For those who aren't members, please join the Greater New York Chamber. We'll connect you with 30,000 different business and civic leaders. And everyone have a safe and enjoy your Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's weekend time.
Thank you, Helena. Likewise. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Nice seeing everyone.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much.
Helena.
Thank you, Helena.
See you later.
See you. Bye-bye.